So today we are doing Daf Chaf Amud Beis. That's where we're at, Chaf Amud Beis, and we're already on Chaf Amud Beis. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the top of the page. That's what we're up to. Okay, so in the Mishnah we learned that Hakireach Korcho Beroishoi V'Makiv Pas Roishoi, right? Different examples of case when you get Makkos. We're continuing. Alien Aloikim was the first Mishnah. We're giving a whole list of things which you get Makkos for being Oiva. So remember, the list isn't exhaustive. We're not saying every single case. So there has to be some sort of chiddush. So each case in the Mishnah has some sort of chiddush involved. So Hakireh Korcha B'Roisha. So we're still talking about Hakireh Korcha B'Roisha. The first case in the Mishnah is someone who makes a bald spot in his head, and we said that if you will kirech arba v'chamish krichas on one maze, you're going to be chayav al kol kricha al kol karcha v'karcha, because it's the way the pasuk is worded. And we said heichidami. We asked in the previous Gemara, and we ultimately said that we're talking about when you did all 5 bevas achas. I think you're just doing one ma'isa. So we say no. So, al kol karcha v'karcha. Okay. Now we have a different question, which is how big does the bald spot have to be? Okay, and the way Rashi learns, if I'm not mistaken, is, or other Rishonim, let's see, how big does it have to be in order to be chayiv malchus? That's the shayla. Even if you did a smaller karka, you'd also be chayiv that. You'd be also that. How much is it in order to be chayiv malchus? The kama shir karka, 6 lines from the top of the page of Chaf Amud Beis. Amar Rav Huna Amar, it's machlek samiroi. Rav Huna Amar, kedei sheyira miroisha. In other words, that you pull out a little bit of hair, it's not noticeable, but once you start seeing a bald spot on your head, in other words, you see your head, so then that's when you're over. That's when you get marked. Rabbi Yochanan, a different Amoira, he argues and he says kigris. It's the size of a gris. A gris is a bean. I believe it's like a dime. In size of a dime. Okay, so that's what the Amoraim says. Then the Gemara continues. Kitanoi, the BMS, it's a machloikas tanoi. This machloikas Amoraim, how big the karach has to be, whether it's kigris or it has to be a visible part of your head. Kamashir karcha, the Bryce which says as follows. Kamashir karcha. So Ragoy Sabach goes of Shimon ben Elazar in kigris. Shimon ben Elazar Taka says kigris, which is in the same opinion of the same thing as what Rabbi Yochanan said earlier in the name of Rabbi Shimon. So here we have Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. It's interesting. Okay, so he says kigris acherim acherim. Other tanoim normally acherim is remeir kedei sheyir miroisha. So fine, it lines up. It's not only machlekes amiram, it's also machlekes tanam. Normally we don't like making a machlekes amiram like machlekes tanam. It's not the end of the world. So that's what we said. It's machlekes. If we don't have a way out of it, then we just keep it kitanoi. It's taka machlekes amiram, but it's also machlekes tanoim, whether it's kigris, which is the size of a bean, or kedei sheyir miroisha. Amar Rabbi Yehuda ber Chaviva. Rabbi Yehuda ber Chaviva says no. It's actually a 3-way machlekes. A 3-way machlekes tanoim. 2 of the above, gris and kedei sheyir miroisha. But one other shia. The third opinion. What's the third opinion? So Amr Rabbi Chaviv pligi batlas tanoim. 3 tanoim argue chadoim kigris. One taka says kigris, like it was the opinion of Elazar Shimon earlier, which is a size of a bean. Chadoim kedei sheyir miroisha. One says it's the amount which is kedei sheyir miroisha. See how much. See your head. Chadoim kishtei saras. This was the most lenient. The most machmir, shall we say. The most machmir opinion. You have to do the least. Chadoim kishtei saras, 2 hairs is enough. Okay, so here we have an extra day of shtei saras. We haven't mentioned that yet. Until now we had kedei sheyir miroisha and kigris, and now we have another shiv kishtei saras. Now we say the ikad mapik shtei saras or ma'ayil bekadosh. So the second opinion which says it's not shtei saras, but rather it's kadosh. It's the size of a lentil, which is a larger shear. And now the Gemara says v'simoncha. If you want to have a simon to remind yourself what's in and what's out, in other words, whether the third opinion, which one it exchanges. So simoncha baheres kigris or michi bechadash. The siman is the Mishnah which says when it comes to saras baheres, one type of saras is kigris, has to be kigris, or michi bechadash is the size of a lentil in order for tummy saras. So if you remember that Mishnah, then you know that one opinion is gris and one opinion is adash, and no one says that. No one says that we take adasha for instead of gris. You have gris and adasha ki adadi. Okay. So that is the first topic, which is how many hairs do you have to do? How much is considered a karchas? Let's see Rashi. Rashi says that this shir you see the naked flesh of the Het. Amr Yehuda Baruch Aviv pliga batlastana. Iked map shtei size mal bachadash of Simon Chazat Rashi. The loy tema map gris of mal chadash. Don't think gris was taken out and adash was put in, because it's Mishnah Zu b'Haretz gris of chadash. You know, you have a good reminder that the Mishnah says we're the shit Saras is shit gris chadash. Here too, we have an opinion which says both gris and adash, and not that we replace gris for adash, rather you replace shtei saris for adash. Or me hashtadina dlef ignal shtei saris. The Yirmi Roish levet sichim mafukim. For sure, we're not going to take away Yirmi Roish, the Shavu ul devri klum. The in's a sheer cuts. It's not a fixed sheer, so it doesn't make sense that we would substitute that. Okay, right in the Gemara, similar topic, but now we're going to Shabbos. Right, there's a malach of goizes, shearing, cutting hair off a sheep, for that matter. Cutting hair of a human being is included in the malach of goizes. Loisas, one of the 39 malachas. So how much do you have to be? How much do you have to do in order to be chayav? Chatos if it's b'shoigeg, I guess. Tana or skil if was b'meiz. Tana noitel moli piazug b'Shabbos chayav. A scissorful of hair on Shabbos, then you chayav malchus you chayav. Chatos, sorry, chayav chatos. V'kama moli piazug. Am reviewed the time, it's 2 hairs. So here too we have another shit of 2 hairs. Fredi Gemara Kasha, Votanya lekorcha shtayim. We have a brayso which says lekorcha shtayim, which implies that dafke lekorcha shtayim for korcha shtayim, but for Shabbos is a different shir. Gemara Tak says Eima v'kein lekorcha shtayim. The brayso which says lekorcha shtayim doesn't mean lekorcha shtayim, that this is the only case when you have 2 hair. 2 hairs you're over for making a bold patch. Like so simul korcha ben yenechem lamez. But also the chein lekorcha shtayim. It's coming, but also for Shabbos. Tani nami hach we talk of a brayso which affirms, backs up that which the Amoyer of Yehuda says that for Shabbos is shtei saras. You have to take out 2 hairs and you chayav chatas. Tani nami hachi hanoi to mali piazug b'Shabbos chayav. Take a scissors full in Shabbos chayav kama mali piazug shtayim. So this Tana Kama goes is a raya. It goes in accordance. In others, the Amoyer earlier, Rav Yehuda goes in the shit of the Tana Kama, which says it's 2 hairs. Taka, now we have another Tana which says no, it's not 2 hairs. 1 hair on Shabbos is good enough. Rabbi Lezer achas or moedim chacham Rabbi Lezer. You have an interesting thing that the chacham agree to Rabbi Lezer that sometimes even on Shabbos it can be 1 hair, even though usually they say it's 2. Why? Which case, and why? If you're taking white hairs outside of black hairs, so then it's considered a chosh of a melacha. You're paying more attention, it's more avodah or whatever. It's more of a focused melacha to take 1 hair out of the shchayros, 1 white hair out of the black, which you don't want. So then it's going to be a problem of goizes, even when it's 1 hair, and the chacham will agree you don't need 2, because this is considered good enough to be goizes, because it's melaka levanis mitashchayros, taking white from black. Then afila achashul chayim. And now the Brayta continues and finishes off. You should know that it's not just on Shabbos that there's a problem with taking 1 hair, you take 1 white hair from black. But it's also us on Shabbos. It says in the Pasuk, Lo yilbash gava simlas isha. Some Rishonim take a learn. It's not awesome in our Torah to take out levanis mitesh chayres. In other words, it's only actual clothing which is awesome in our Torah. But to do a ma'isa which a isha would do, even though it's lenoi and it's to beautify, etc., it's not going to be. And they bring a right from the lashon. It doesn't say chayav malchus. It also says mishum shenem. What's up mishum shenem? Should it say shenem? What's up mishum shenem? Mishum shenem means it's like a poil yoitz of lo yilbash. It's a subcategory. It's a drabban. I think Taisus says it. Anyway, okay. So let's see Rashi. So far, what have we said in this Amot? Just simply that different shiurim for karcha, and then we apply the Shabbos is similar. Shabbos is also 2 hairs according, which is similar to one of the days we found by karcha. Machlokes is 2 hairs or 1 hair. Everyone agrees if it's lavan mitoich shachar, it's lavan mitoich shchayres. So then you're going to be chayiv even for 1. And Dovid afilu b'chol also says Rashi hachi gorsin on tana anoitel mali piazug b'Shabbos gorsin on tani tana. Yeah, obviously we have the gerus right in front of it because it's Amiroim talking, so you can't say it's a bride. It's piazuk chud shomis barim. Scissors full. Aim of a kain lechol chayim lefrushi asap. B'mlak is hard to find him. Given the autumn makpid, I'll say love, and since a person is makpid on his white hairs. Yeah, the person doesn't want to look old, so it's something that this person wants to do is take out the white hairs from the black. Consider malacha chashuva. Otherwise, what's the big deal? There's a haircut. It's a haircut. You take less than 2 hairs, even 2 hairs is a chiddush. If you take less than 2 hairs, what are you doing already? You're just picking out a hair. If you take your love and you take shot, then it's a malacha chashuva. Something which you're concerned about, it's something which you're worried about, it's something that you're machshiv. One stam hair is not going to be considered chashuv, at least according to the Tanakam. But when it's love and mitayich shachar, it's considered chashav. Shchayis mitayich levanis legorsin. Okay, apachol also shemitznoi atzmai b'noye isha. He's beautifying himself with the same type of beautification that a woman would do. It's the norm for a woman to do. Okay, says the Gemara Vayta. Yeah, so we're going back on the Mishnah. We spoke about Kirech Korcha. Now we go to the next stage. Makkos Pas Reisha. Makkos Pas Reisha is the payas, right? People have a mistake about payas. They think, when you have a little boy and you cut his payas off, and you leave payas over here, that's payas. But really, payas means when you shave close to the skin and you make it totally round. The hair which just comes down isn't really a pay. It's not really the problem, but we do it because that's how a yid looks, right? But the issur is to shave close to the relatively close to the head, to the hair, and make it circular so that there's no hair at all underneath the jawbone. See exactly here. Tana Rabban Makkos Pas Reisha. Yeah, we're talking about the payas. Tana Rabban Pas Reisha Soif Reisha. It's not really the corner; it's the end of his head. The Ezu Soif Reisha. What does this mean? The end of the head. Someone who evens out his temples to his forehead. Over here. This is staff, right? So when you equal the over here, to behind your ears. In other words, you just make a straight line from behind your ears straight up to your hairline. That's how I understand it. Yeah, let's see Rashi. When you're over the lav of Leisa Kiva Pastor Reish, you shouldn't circle, even out Pastor Reish. Right behind your ears, you don't have any hair. Your forehead doesn't. But then, in other words, if you go by your forehead, but then you hit some hair, and if you make it straight, so then it's going to be a problem. You take away all the hair which is over here, and you straighten up straighten your hairline the whole way around, to behind your ear. Okay. That's what we said about Makkos Pas Reisha. Here we have another interesting din, which is a very interesting din, which is there's two lavin bets. Maybe it's two lavin or one. There's two problems with Leisa Kiva Pas Reisha. It's the guy giving the haircut, and also the guy getting the haircut. Both are over, which is a big chiddush because usually for two reasons. Bemis. One is the pasuk Leisa Kiva Pas Reisha, which mashma. There's the person who does the ma'isa. Secondly, even if you're going to tell me nikif also is also to do, but it's a lav shein by ma'isa. In other words, even if the lav does include it, there's two problems over. You have to do two jumps in order to say.
But it's the same person.
What did you say? Yeah, you have to say. We'll see. You have to say two jumps in order for it to be considered a It's a tani kameder of chista. Echad hamakiv ve'echad hanikif loika. Whether the person giving the haircut or the one being given the haircut gets malchus. So the obvious kasha is before even if you're going to assume that the pasuk Leisa Kiva Takam is a lav both the makiv and the nikif, it's a lav shein b'maisa. That's the Gemara's kasha. Someone who eats dates in a sieve should be loika. I think it's a funny sort of lashon, but what's he doing already? He's not doing anything. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yehudi. It's Rabbi Yehudi, lav she'ein by ma'isa loikino. That's teretz number one. It's Rabbi Yehudi who says lav she'ein by ma'isa loikino. But you have to add the knetch, yeah? Now the lav of Leisa Kiva isn't just talking about the person doing the act, but the person who it's being done to is also being over by letting it be done to him. And if he's like he's happy to have it done, he's not being forced into it. It's what he wants. He's asked this guy, right? So if he has it being done to his hair, he's over. You have to it's a lav shein b'maisa. So you have to say that this tani tana kamed Rav Chisda. Tani tana kamed Rav Chisda means someone taught a brayso in front of Rav Chisda. This brayso goes according to Rabbi Yehudi, who says lav shein b'maisa. Like that's teretz number one. Teretz number two is Rava oime b'makif le'atzmoi v'divrakol. This brayso isn't necessarily talking in a case where there's a makif and a nikif, one guy's having a haircut by someone else. No, it's lav shein b'mais and itaka wouldn't get malchus. In order to explain the brayso to go according to everybody, but makif la'as midirakol. So the chiddush is like this: when someone gives himself a haircut, he gets two malchus, malchios. Sorry, yeah, one because he's the makif and the other because he's the nikif. That's teretz number two. Rav Ashi Omer, even much more galactic pshat, is taka a regular case, one guy giving another person a haircut. Ayin in the Talmud lav shein b'mais is b'misayeh v'divriyaka. He's misayeh. He moves his head around. He helps the guy. He is doing something. He helps the guy give him a haircut, and therefore he's also doing something, and therefore he's chayav malchus. Let's see Rashi. Mashvet stuff we did. The achel tamri babi loichet tamar b'kvar yeloike bit mir kolem nikav ma pasha shul loike lav shem b'mayis haven loike. Right? He's doing nothing. So Gemara says the amel chamani hashoyel l'chakaman ka'amnes nekiv loike. The one who asked you, who is this going like? Aim Rabbi Yehudi. You can say it's Rabbi Yehudi. Lav shem b'mayis loike. Rabbi Yehudi we know holds in a few places in Shas, but already in this Masechta, after all the waste of design of Medal. The Rabbi Yehuda holds the Lav Shem B'Maisa is taka like in the Hainu Lav Shem B'Maisa. This is Lav Shem B'Maisa. Now Rashi has to explain in just a second why is that Lav Bechlal? The Nikif isn't the Torah doesn't say don't get your haircut. So he says no. The Nikif would call Lav. The Nikif is taka oiv on the Lav. The Loi Sakifu the Shamina Likra Hachi. Loi Sakifu means Loi Sanichu Lahakif. We taka understand pshat. The Loi Sakifu means don't let someone give yourself a haircut. Maniach Lahakif Kemakif. Inami another pshat. Loi Sakifu said in plural. Loi Sakifu didn't say Loi Sakif Pa'as Reish. Come up as Loi Sakifu. Inami the Avkif Lashon Rab. Since it says in the plural tense or plural form, that Trei Kahama has Rachman and Nikva Makif. It's taka warning both the Nikv and the Makif. Okay. Rava Amar. Loit tzriches, loik mikra Yehuda. You don't have to say it's Rabbi Yehuda. Hach brayz the Tanaka made the chista the kaim Makkos satzman. It's talking about a case where one guy's giving himself a hack and he's getting ukamashma. Sorry, loit tzriches loik mikra Yehuda. My mistake. Loit tzriches loik mikra Yehuda. Hach brayz the Tanaka made the chista the kaim but Makkos satzman. We're going to say it's talking about a case when he's Makkos satzman. What's going on? Ukamashma lon the chayv tarti that you take get two Makkos mishum Makkos mishum nikah. But if it was you take one guy letting himself get a hack, then it'll be lav shem b'maisa, and you take wouldn't get Makkos. But in the case where you give yourself a hack, one problem is that you're giving a hack. And second one is that you're giving yourself a hack. I might have thought that you would only get one. The divrei akol, the loy tzarek the trust of you don't have to say it's Yehuda anymore because it's taka lav sheyash b'maisa. Mesayeh mazmin hasaris l'mak. He's making the hairs accessible or available to the makif. Bissel weiter. Hamashkes pasok, ziknoi, sorry. Yeah, the next case is not the payer, someone who destroys his beard. Oh, well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't have to, it's not an akimta. Yeah, it says, Msayeh v'divreka. Ravayim v'makif la'asmi v'divreka. Yeah, Rasham Msayeh v'divreka. That's how it seems to be halacha. Sometimes we say Msayeh ain't by mamish, but I think that's a situation where the person could have done it without you. I don't know how it applies over, but in general, in Hilchos Shabbos, I think that's talking about a situation where one guy could do it without you and you're helping along, so you're not needed. Bechlal. Over here, he couldn't give you the hacker without you moving in the right direction. Possibly, I didn't. I think I didn't see it this time, but if I remember correctly, that's the pshat. Either that, or for some reason, here Messiah is different. Okay. Yeah.
It's mashma is a chiyuv on the person. I don't know.
What do you mean? He's doing something.
Get away. Shabbos, it's not like. It's a little different, no? Chiyuvim.
Saying like this. By Shabbos, you actually have to do the malacha. So if you're not doing the malacha at all, right? It's Messiah, you're not doing the malacha. Someone else could do the malacha without you. Here, even if the guy could give you a haircut without you, so what? You're participating by moving your hand, and the lav is on the nikkah.
Even if you don't move your hand.
Even if you don't move that, the only problem is then it's lav shein b'maisa, right? The Messiah is in order to make that shishma anyway. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point. Okay. What's pa'as zikna? Means that end of the bit. The ezu soiv zikna shiboyle zikna. Rashi, shiboyle zikna mean says Rashi. Shiboyle zam kulu chamesh payas the chashav b'masnis bichlal shiboyle. And all the 5 corners are called shiboyles. So now we get to the case of basically you're wounding yourself, yeah? You're wounding yourself a la mace, yeah? And as Pasha says, Seret lo nefesh lo yisitnu, is that the last one Pasha? Let's see, lo yisakifu Seret lo nefesh lo yisitnu b'b'sarchem. The next is Ksevis Kaka, which is a tattoo. But before that, Seret lo nefesh lo yisitnu b'b'sarchem, the Pasuk in Parashas Kedoshim just says Seret lo nefesh lo yisitnu b'b'sarchem. It doesn't actually say, it says lo nefesh. Ataki does say lo nefesh, right? It says lo nefesh. In other words, which is mashma, it's got to be done for mace. So now we're going to discuss different things we learn from this pasuk, right? But, similar to what we found by the karcha. In fact, it's even more inclusive because by the karcha we just said that if you karech arba v'chamish kricha is yichai 5. But what happens if you karech 1 karcha for 5 mesim? We didn't see over there that there's a meferish that there's 5 malchus. But here by Tzoret, By Srita, we have both ways. Both, whether you made 5 wounds for 1 mace, or you made 1 wound for 5 mason, the Mishnah says beferish. In each case, you chayav 5. So now we're going to see how do we know that from the Pesukim. I'm sorry, Tzitach Ton Rabbanon Besarat. You make a Srita, you make a wound. Yochel afilu sorat al beisish shenafal vas finasish tov bayam. If you would have just said besarat lo yisitnu, I would have thought, even if you wound yourself for some other anguish, in a painful situation, people unfortunately do this. Yeah, it's a real thing that people do. It's not a help. Yeah, that people mutilate themselves when they're depressed or angry or whatever. It's a phenomenon that exists. If someone does that, so even if he did it because his house fell down and he doesn't have insurance, yeah, he burnt down, or his sfina sunk in the sea, Talmud loymar lenefesh. Therefore, the pasuk started lenefesh. The Torah was makbid only if you did a srita, you wounded lenefesh. Taka is a machlokes, I believe, rishonim, whether if you did a seret for another reason, whether it's asa midrabanan at the very least or not. But akopanim, everyone agrees. And midiraisa, this is what the Gemara is telling me. The lenefesh, you only chayav lenefesh. Only if you do it, if a person does it out of mourning, out of anguish for the loss of somebody. Lav dafka, by the way, when it says ala mace, I don't think it has to dafka be the loss of a family member. It seems if just any mace. Any mace who's close to you, and that's the reason why you're wounding yourself, so you're going to be chayav malchus for this lab. Now the Gemara continues to the cases in the Mishnah. Right? The Mishnah says, the Mishnah also says mason, but the Mishnah says Soret Srita Achaz al Chamisha Mason, Mechamer Srita Sal Mace Achad. So what's taka the Pesukim? How do we know that if you do 5 woundings, 5 wounds for 1 mace, or 1 wound for 5 mason, that you chayav 5? So here we learn out of Pesukim. Or Minayin the Mechamer Srita Sal Mace Achad. How do we know that if you wound yourself 5 different times, but for 1 mace you taka chayav 5 malchus? We have to explain, by the way, that it was with 1 hasron, they did that you did all the Chamer Shritas at the same time, or even more than Bevas Achas, and you chayav in each one. Talmud loyma v'seret. Right? You could have said loy sisru tu lo nefesh. What's up is v'seret. Yeah, the pasuk says. Let's see the lashon pasuk. V'seret lo nefesh loy sitnu. Right? You could have said loy sisru tu. Whatever the lashon is, v'seret. Yeah, it talks about it, and now it doesn't say don't wound yourself. It says and a wound for a soul you shouldn't place. So from there we learn from the wording that we talk about the wound itself. Not we don't say don't wound. We say don't place a wound. So we learn that each shrita you chayav another one. Yeah, nefesh in chayav. Or minayin the misachar mishita sal meis. Arush chayav kolachas. Vagas tam leim seret chayav kol shrita shrita. Rabbi Yosi says. It's mashma maybe that it's not Divrakol, but in the Mishnah it's mashma, it's everybody. Yeah, Rabbi Yosef minay in the Mishnah Shita Achas al Heimesim Shul Chayav Kol Achas. Well, the other way around. This is much bigger chiddush if you ask me. Yeah, and we see that by Karcha we didn't see such a thing. That if you take 1 wound for 5 mace, you're only doing 1 act. Chayav Kol Achas v'Achas. Tamalim lenefesh. The seret lenefesh they sit no. You're not allowed to put seret full nefesh, but if you're doing it for 5 different nefashas, your kavana hastus. I don't know how they prove that. I guess they ask you whatever. To prove to get you 5 malchus, he asked me. But if you're doing it for 5 different mesim, what does the Hagoy Sabachsa on the base? Kol echad ve'echad. Okay. Now the obvious question is, how can you say such a thing? Earlier we learned that a seret nefesh teaches me pasha pshat, that it's only for nefesh, it's not for sfinasi shatava bayam. It's not for the fact that that your stock went down. Yeah. So for a fixil basis shenafel sfinas shatavim, we already learned how the word the nefesh for pasha pshat. Then it means only for a mace and not for the house that fell down. All the sfinasi shatava bayam. And the Gemara answers like this, which is it's an interesting thing. Yeah, the pasuk says certainly nefesh leisinu in parashas kedoshim, Emor, whatever. Yeah, Emor, and the pasuk in parashas Re'eh says banim atam Hashem elikeichem loisis goydedu v'leisim kachvein. Okay, what does loisis goydedu mean? It's a different pshatim exactly, but it means similar sort of thing that you're making a wound. So soon we'll see this takadays which say the ones with the kli and ones with the yad or whatever. There's such havana. But over here we're saying kisava Rabbi Yosi who learns that the chayav kol shrita he holds shrito gedido achasi. Shrita gedido is exactly the same thing. So the passage is repetitive. One place says by koinim it says certainly nefesh they sit in a bifsarchem. Which then he says lenefesh that is pasha, but then it says again bonim at masham lekechem loisis goydedu v'loisosim kach v'nechem lameis. So that's clearly. So in other words, the fact that it's lameis we already know from one place. Why is the second time? Is to tell me the extra limud that it's alcohol nefesh v'nefesh. Let's see Rashi. Where are we up to? Talmud v'sar demotzi l'michtav. Second, 2 lines on the bottom of the page. Talmud v'sar demotzi l'michtav l'nefesh le'sistru b'makom v'sar l'nefesh le'sintnu. Could have said l'nefesh le'sistru. For a soul, don't make a wound. But it says in a funny way, v'seret l'nefesh le'sintnu, talking about the noun, the shem dov of the seret. Lashnaka Talmud v'sar miruboy devav. You learn it from the vav. Okay. Either way, that we learn out the Mechayva calls Shrita Shrita. Rabbi Yossi adds more chiyuv, not only a chayv on each seret, but even if you do one seret, one wound, but you do it for 5 different maids, Mechayv on each one. So right, the Gemara asks straight away, how can you learn that from Nefesh? In other words, the pasuk, so when it says on Nefesh means kipshutai, and so how can Rabbi Yossi say that Nefesh, the extra wood on Nefesh, is not extra? The nefesh is coming to tell me that it's only for soul and for someone who passed away, not for any other bad thing that happened to you. So the Gemara answers, Kesova Rabbi Yossi Srito Gdido Achasi. Rabbi Yossi holds Srito Gdido Achasi. To travayu bein biyad bein mikli, meaning to say that both Shrita Gdid, even though it's a different lashon, a different word in Hebrew, they're both referring to bein biyad bein mikli. It's just the same, 2 different ways of saying the same thing. Ochsiv bigdida lemeis. Bagdid it says lemeis leisis goyde leisis simukarcha, so that we know it's lemeis. The nefesh we said earlier is going to teach me that it's al kol nefesh v'nefesh. Do a few more lines. Yeah. Amar Shmuel hamisaret bichli chayev. The Amoyer Shmuel says that a misaret bichli chayev, someone who wounds himself with a kli, is chayev. So let's see Rashi. What's going on over there? Havadai says Rati Pshita L'Kula Alman the Ikki Gedida Mashram B'Ktiv Ikkasita Mashram B'Yad. Everyone agrees that Ba'etzim the Lashon of Gedida for sure means with a kli, and Srita means with a yad. The Srita is like a wound that you make with your hand, and Gedida is something which you do with a kli. Oka'ama Shmuel Masar B'Chli Al Hameis Chayev. He says that Masar B'Chli Al Hameis is going to be Chayev. Lo Kema Hamegaded B'Kli. That's meaning the same Srita Shayach B'Kli. He's coming to teach you that the same Srita is also Shayach B'Kli. V'oisach habur ba'atzme B'Kli al hameis chayiv shnei laven. It's pshat. If you make a charur bur with the Kli chayiv 2, mishum mesaret or mishum megadet. Digdi the Srita achazit t'tavayu bein b'yad bein B'Kli. This is how Rashi learns. Shmuel. Mesaret B'Kli chayiv. Someone who's mesaret B'Kli, someone who makes a wound. B'Kli is going to be chayiv 2. One for the fact that he's doing a Srita B'Kli, and another one that he's doing it with a Kli. In other words, both mean bein biyad, bein bikli. And since he's doing it, I'm not sure I fully understand. Since he's doing it with a kli, so therefore he's doing it twice. He's chayav twice. Meisvei, the Gemara asks a kasha from Rabbi, says Srita Gdida Achasi. The Srita Gdida means the same thing. Elosh Srita biyad or Gdida bikli. If he's there, if you do it with a kli, only over the lav of lois is going to do. This is what. In other words, it's 2 lavim. It's 2 lavim. So according to Shmuel, you get, if you misar b'kli chayiv 2 lavin, because you're over the pasuk of sarat l'nefesh, and you also over lois is going to do. Now I'm not sure. Would Shmuel also say if you misar b'yad, you also chayiv 2? Sounds like it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the Pesukim are both talking about bein biyad, bein b'kli. Now we're asking a brayso which says otherwise. The Srita Gdida asalish Srita biyad Gdida b'kli, which means to say that no, the pasuk nefesh lo sister to whatever the lashon over them parashas Emor, you're only over biyad, and the lashon and lo is going to do, you're only going to over the klin. If you do it, you're only going to be over 1. How can Shmuel say you have 2? Right, this is that. Yeah. So the answer is Huda Rabbi Yossi. Shmuel holds that Rabbi Yossi Utaka says that both Srita and Gdida is the same. How do we know that Rabbi Yossi holds it? Because that's how Rabbi Yossi gets to the nefesh being extra. So let's see Rashi. Meis fek dir sit axel bein sit bein dir in khabur im shnei mal meis al sit biyad dir bi khash shmu dam travay bein bein clean, right? Because the dam am sar bikli like am gad bikli miklad sit shaykh bikli dir is all the same thing. So that's what we say that hu da am Rabbi Yossi. Okay, we'll stop over here just because this is I didn't prepare further, so might as well
So start back on Shmuel maybe.
Tony Tan, we can start Shmuel again, on Shmuel. Say.